Hi, I'm Hbell, and this is the Legends of Inside Sports and the Way We Were. Well, today, since this is Black History Month, I'm going to be talking to one of my favorite people, and he's a man of God. He's a modern day street gang whisperer. He has been interviewed around the country on radio, television, and on the internet about the dangers of street gangs. His internet writings include The Manhood Line, the Ramey Commentaries, Gangline Blogger, online reviews from player to coach, abounding in cyberspace. He is a contributor and blogger for Black Men in America. And I'd like to welcome to the Legends of Inside Sports, my man, Mr. Mike Ramey. How you doing, my brother?
Doing fine, Coach. Just remember that I am Black history.
All right, make no mistake about it. I like that because you are truly, truly Black history. You know what I want to stop.
Black over the age of 40 is Black history.
you know, Mike. I want to start out talking about gangs. Really, I really want to talk about gangs. We didn't get a chance to really get into that the last time you were on the show, and I want to talk about is MS-13 in your city?
Yes, sir. We've got the what I call the 6 basic food groups. We've got the of course in the Midwest we don't have the Bloods and the Crips. We've got the Vice Lords and the Gangster Disciples. Those are the major gangs here. We also have the Latin Kings, which they have prevalence on the East Coast. We've got MS-13. We've also got some of the smaller gangs, but we've got the basics, like I call the basic 6 here. MS-13 dropped in, I would say probably about 2010, and they haven't left yet. They're still here.
Yeah. Now, you could blow some minds with this because I know this subject has been brought up before, and I know it has been touched on here and there. What about the gangs in pro sports? Are there gang members on these professional sports teams, Mike?
Yes, sir. I'll give you one name, and everybody knows who this name is. Aaron Hernandez.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Aaron was gang when he was playing high school ball. They knew he was gang. They knew he was gang when he was in college. He was still affiliated. And when he went to the pros, he was still affiliated. And they didn't care. And as long as he could play football and do what they told him to do and stay out of trouble, he was okay.
Mm-hmm.
But like like they say, God ain't too thrilled. God don't like ugly, and he ain't too thrilled with pretty. So his gang membership eventually cost him his life in prison. They basically whacked him just after he was acquitted of a double murder charge.
Right.
So, but here's the thing. There have been gang members in pro sports, especially football and basketball, since I would have to say the early 2000s.
Right.
Just looking at football, here at the Combine, which is here in Indianapolis, an article came out about 2008, 2009, saying that the NFL was really, A, getting more gang members than they thought, and B, did not know how to control them.
Wow.
So you're looking now at the prospect of gang money being funneled into these NFL organizations so that the organizations will look the other way and placate gang members. Here's an interesting statistic that came out in 2010. The Oakland Raiders were like in the bottom of the barrel concerning NFL victories, in their season. But the Oakland Raiders jerseys and paraphernalia were the number one sellers for that year. In fact, for a couple of years in a row. Now, how is it that a team that is below 500 is the number one bestseller of NFL gear? I'll tell you how. Because the gangs use that gear to rep their gang. Matter of fact, gangs now are so sophisticated, they use college gear, and in some cases, they use high school gear to rep their particular gang. Here around Indianapolis, when Peyton Manning was here, you would see number 18 jerseys all over the place, especially on gang members. So they have mainstream. They're part of the culture. One of the interesting things now is because of gang culture, rap music is now the number one genre of music in the country, if not in the world. It has replaced, as of mid-2017, it has replaced rock and roll. So rappers, starting out in Harlem, New York in 1974, that's where rap was created. You're getting Black History Month moment here, brother. It was discovered by white folks in 1984 at MTV, and MTV from 1984 to 1991, 7 years, took rap music and hip-hop from the urban streets into the suburbs. Now, in 2018, rap has been taken from suburbs around the world. You've got Muslim rap groups that rap the Quran.
Wow.
Hindu rap groups. And then you've got good old-fashioned domestic rap groups. But this is a long way from the Sugar Hill Gang and a long way from the Chicago Bears.
Right.
And people seem to forget that part of our problem as a race is that we live in a society that esteems culture but does not esteem people. They will take the black athlete. I know this is coming up, but they have successfully taken the black athlete where a generation ago or longer we weren't thought of that much as athletes and welcome. Now we're welcome as athletes, but not as coaches and owners, and that's going to take another generation to rectify.
Well, we're talking to Mike Ramey in Indianapolis, Indiana, and that's his beautiful picture back there. See that big guy smiling broadly behind me. We're talking about we're talking about gangs in America. Mike, I read a piece that said the mob will always have a hand in sports, according to ex-NBA ref Tim Donahue. Remember him when he got busted? He served 13 months in jail for fixing NBA games. In 2015, in a documentary, he talked the unavoidable interplay between organized crime and pro sports, and how the NBA should come clean for what it is, star-driven entertainment rather than on the level of athletic competition. And I got a taste of that the other night. And speaking of the Sugar Hill Gang, they performed at halftime of the Washington Wizards game the other night when the Boston Celtics were in town. But yeah, they performed. And I watched the game. The Wizards have the game taken right out of their hands the other night by refereeing, man. I mean, totally something like I've never seen before. The Wizards came from behind, had the Celtics on the rope, and Kyrie Irving went to the corner to shoot a jumper, three-pointer with less than 10 seconds to go. The man never touched him. It ran it back on replay and everything. And they sent him to the free throw line to tie the game up and send it to overtime. Then they came right back in overtime and gave him another 3 points for a suspected foul that wasn't a foul. So I'm kind of seeing, is this stuff looks like that it really looks like somebody's betting on the game, and the officials have become a part of it, Mike.
Well, let's go back to what Henry Hill did with college sports back in the day. In that, Henry Hill was a bag man for the mob, and they got a couple of college kids under their belts, and sports gambling. Now you've got sports. You got the mob involved with high school games.
Mm.
So I mean, you stop and think. You sit there. You sat and watched. Let's say you watched a college high school basketball game.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that high school basketball games are no longer blowouts? They're only decided by maybe 1, 2, or 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody making some money somewhere.
You are absolutely right, man, Mike. Because just recently, Gonzaga High School played John Carroll High School here in Washington D.C. And John Carroll used to be a pal with John Thompson, Monkman, Lloyd, Tom Hoover, all of those guys. And Gonzaga now has become the power, and they're being funded by this guy at Under Armour. And he put like $46 million into the athletic system at Gonzaga. And they recently played a game, and things went down, man, where John Carroll had upset them at the buzzer with 1 second left on the clock. And they called timeouts, and fans ran on the floor. So the referee said, hey, that's a technical against your school, and sent Gonzaga to the foul line. He missed the first foul shot. They said, oh, no, it's a technical on the bench, which means there's 2 foul shots coming up. And they sent this boy to the line, and they won the game on the line, man, with the game over just about. So something is really happening here, man. And a guy named Dave McKenna wrote about this piece and called up the officials and everything else. Nobody wanted to talk about it. So, and then you see where Adam Silver is backing legalized gambling in sports as far as the NBA is concerned. So we're heading down a real dark road here, man.
Well, not to mention the fact that black brother a couple of years ago, and his name escapes me right now, but he filed a federal lawsuit against the NCAA for using his likeness and the likenesses of other black players in the NCAA college video games.
Yeah, I remember. Mm-hmm.
And he won the case, but lost it on appeal. But
wow.
That tells you that. And then there was another brother that sued to get athletics and student athletes recognized as union members and to get paid, and they knocked that suit down. See, let's just be honest. We're at a point in history that the black athlete is being taken advantage of on a large scale from middle school all the way up to the pros. If you're already programmed, then when the okie doke happens, you don't suspect anything.
Mm-hmm.
My dad calls it the okie doke when he was alive. He said, why do you never fall for the okie doke? Meaning that you're going to wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more, as the British say. See, when you have the dominant thing being programmed to our young black males in that they're being programmed for sports and not for academics, then there's a problem. They're being programmed. I was watching a high school game last night. Just to show you how good programming is. There's a brother that plays for one of the New York football teams. He has this black brother got a blonde top to his hair. Well, last night I was watching the playback of one of the high school games of one of the high schools I used to teach at. And they had this black brother that had this blonde hair all the way around his head. And one of the funniest things was, now here he is, a high school young man, blonde hair, black man, but got a high school kid, got blonde hair. And during the highlight reel, he slips and falls flat on his face. Now, if you got that blonde hair and you black, they're going to notice you first, okay?
Right.
But when you have got a system in place that is what I call the new plantation, where black boys and now black girls are being marketed in elementary school, and there have been several black boys approached by high school or college scouts in elementary school and given scholarships because of their athletic prowess. What are they going to concentrate on? They're not going to concentrate on their books. Where are the George Washington Carvers going to come from?
Right.
Where are the Hbells going to come from? If all we're focused on is sports and we get rid of academics. Meanwhile, the Asians, the whites are passing us like 40 going north on the information freeway because we're not focused on academics anymore.
Right.
See, now that we know that we is free, we have taken on, like the Bible says, we have taken on the language and style of our oppressors.
Right. We're talking to Mike Ramey in Indianapolis, Indiana, and this is Black History Month, and Mike and I are talking about Black history. And Mike, one of the things that you had referenced to me was ESP magazine, the state of the black athlete. And
Yes,
you know,
sir.
somebody once said, if you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat it. And when I opened up the ESPN magazine to read the state of the athlete, I knew I was in the wrong territory right away because the editor-in-chief of ESPN magazine is a young man that came out of the Washington Post named Kevin Miranda. And when he was at the Washington Post, he didn't know about the community then or sports. So now he's the editor of ESPN magazine. I said, what am I getting ready to read? And the conscience of a champion in the NBA, Golden State Warriors, they had a column on that. And I give Steve Kerr a lot of credit, for being down to earth, listen to a player type of coach. He relates to his players not only because he was a player, because he comes from a background that really a lot of black players don't understand, but he understands the plight of the black athlete. But one of the things they ended up saying, Mike, at the end of the story, when they talk about the Golden State Warriors and how community conscious they are, they end up saying that Steve Kerr is the most this guy knows more or been more involved when it comes to the black community. That he is the most woke coach in NBA history. That's not true. The most woke coach in NBA history was Red Auerbach. And what he did in Boston with the Boston Celtics, when black folks thought the Boston Celtics was a racist team, and Red was the first to draft a player, the first to have 5 black ball players on the floor at the same time, the first to hire an NBA coach, the first to hire a black general manager. Folks don't know the history, and then when they read ESPN magazine, and then they tell you that Steve Kerr is the most woke player in NBA history when it comes to the athletes, they don't have a clue. Mark Johnson, of course, he took over Mark Johnson's spot, and Mark Johnson was never been allowed to do what Steve Kerr is doing now because Mark was just in tune with the ball players more than Steve Kerr will ever be. But being a black coach, he would never be allowed to do what Steve Kerr is doing in Oakland right now.
Now, I may be showing my age, but to me, the most woke black player in NBA history was Bill Russell.
Okay. No, you're not showing your age.
And who did Bill Russell have a connection to?
Red Auerbach.
There you go. See, about our history is we don't understand how we're not supposed to be building bombs. We're supposed to be building bridges. That's what the successful athlete does. And to this day, who gets the respect in NBA history? Jabbar,
yeah,
Chamberlain, but not Russell, because Russell can think. That's what makes Russell dangerous. Russell has done it all at a low key and is successful. Whenever they talk about NBA legends, Russell is in the pack, but he's not up near the top. They talk about Jabbar. They talk about Jordan.
Magic Johnson.
Yep, Magic Johnson. They don't highlight, and this is the danger of blacks in sports. They had a great documentary on Christian Leitner, and they showed him when he was at Duke how Duke basically manhandled two top college black teams that were puffed up by the media. And one of them was Michigan, and there was another one, UNLV. And they had total black lineups that were starters. And here comes Little Duke, and Little Duke comes in and basically cleans their clocks. Now, we got to be honest. Sports always wants the great white hope.
Yes. No doubt.
They wanted the great white hope when Jack Johnson was the heavyweight champion. They wanted the great white hope when Joe Louis was around. They wanted the great white hope with Ali.
That's right.
And nobody could beat Ali without a 2x4 and a gang behind him. And you got to understand, and your listeners have got to understand, and young men need to understand, if you're going to play sports, then you're also going to have to develop your mind in the classroom. And you're also going to have to work with people who are different from you in order to be successful. And if you don't want to, if you're hooked on the money and you're hooked on the fame and all that stuff, you're not going to succeed, because the bottom line is, if it does not better your race, you don't need to be involved with it. And what are we seeing among black athletes today?
Right. You're absolutely right, Mike. We're getting there. We're running out of time. Always running out of time, but we're going to try to get through this. Mike, there was another piece in ESPN magazine, The State of the Black Athlete. We're talking about Malcolm Jenkins and Eric Reed and Colin Kaepernick. They went through this kneel-down protest thing, and then they finally got a chance to meet with the owners, because the owners were fearing for that green dollar bill. They decided they had to do something. So anyway, Malcolm Jenkins ended up going to meet with the owners, and the owners came up with $89 million to work on community programs in the NFL. But the NFL ball players also had to match that $89 million with $89 million of their own. Well, one of the things that Malcolm Jenkins did wrong, he called Eric Reed, who was not in the meeting, and say, look, man, this is what has happened, and I just want to make sure that you're all right with this. And when he told Eric Reed about the $89 million, Eric Reed went off. You understand? Because it sounded like a sellout, because the owner said, well, if we give you this $89 million, you got to stop the protest. And this is how they do. They buy us off. And so Eric Reed, of course, went ballistic. But I think Malcolm should have went and met with Eric Reed face to face and try to figure out a strategy how to take advantage of this $89 million if they were going to take it, and how it will really help overcome police brutality, the educational system, the justice system, and everything else, because, money talks. But not this way, because it did look like that Malcolm Jenkins has sold out. I don't believe he sold out, because he's a very intelligent brother. I just don't think that he handled it the right way by calling Eric Reed on the telephone. I think they should have met with Colin Kaepernick, Eric Reed, and whatever, and sat down and looked each other in the eye, not by telephone. I think that's where the mistake was made. What's your take on that, Mike?
Well, I also think the mistake was made that the owners uh, always go to the checkbook.
Mm-hmm.
If the black athlete came in and said, keep your money, what we want is for you to put money into a legal fund where we can secure a battery of black attorneys around the country that anytime we need legal help in addressing community needs, all we got to do is go get us a Johnny Cochran to file a class action lawsuit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's how it works. See, the NFL, and I'm just speaking about the NFL. The NFL has got the best profit sharing agreement I've ever seen, where the rich teams have to pay the poor teams if the poor teams don't do well. That's what they call profit sharing. It's like when I was an active newsman in the broadcast industry, and I know we're close on time, but if you were a member of a radio group, the profitable stations had to share money with the not profitable stations. That's why the guys that were at the lousy stations got everything, and the people that provided money got nearly nothing.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's what we have to be careful of. And that's what black athletes have to be careful of. Everything can't be settled by a dollar sign.
Right.
See, the reason why the NBA stock is ahead of the NFL stock is the NBA commissioner came out a few years ago and said, look, y'all ain't going to be walking around representing the NBA looking like thugs. So they're wearing what? Suits, ties, casual wear. What are the NFL players wearing? And right. I'll just take my seat and let you finish the show.
Yeah. One of the NFL owners set back after they had given that 89, had agreed to give him 89 million, and he said, what we did was sit back and watch them implode. He felt that they were going to have conflict, and that's exactly what they had. And that's probably what that same NFL owner said. We cannot allow the prisoners to run the prison. So they sit back and allow these guys to implode because they could not see eye to eye with each other. And this goes right along with what you saw with Shannon Sharp and Ray Lewis, how they end up going after each other. And this is what happens with us. Money does not make a dummy smart, Mike. Let's put it like that. See, a lot of these athletes think because they get $2 more than someone else, they become smarter. They don't become smarter. You understand? But that's how they are. That's the type of mentality that we got today. It's really the plantation mentality. And it's hurting athletes up and down the line. And nothing's going to change, man, until we can sit down among each other and look each other in the eye, man, and not be scared to talk with each other. We're scared to talk with each other. We don't trust each other. So that's why this confusion will go on and on and on. Now, there were a couple of good stories in there that I enjoyed reading. Cam Newton, a little insight. John Wall, a letter to his dad in prison. I found out a lot by John Wall. In fact, his environment and how he came up was almost a dead ringer to how I grew up. So there was some good stories in there. But I think that until we can get together as a people, man, we cannot allow folks to divide and conquer. And that's what they've been able to do it. And they've been able to do it with a dollar bill. Mike, I'm going to give you the last word before we get out of here. But this is going to continue. Black History Month run 365 days on the Legends of Inside Sports. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, if you go to Google images and type in Muhammad Ali and Jim Brown, you will see that historic picture of Ali, Jim Brown, and a couple other brothers sitting at the same table across the sports spectrum talking about community issues.
Yeah, I know that picture. That's a great picture, man. And that was Powell. And we don't have that like it anymore because even Jim Brown has gone the other way when it comes to the dollar bill. Um, I don't. I'm. You know, I'm listening to Malcolm Jenkins and he's saying he's not going to the White House. And Torrey Smith and Chris Long, who is white, all of them decided they're not going to the White House under no circumstances because Malcolm said I'm not interested in a photo op, and I understand that they need to find a way to come together, and hopefully that they will, Mike. Mike, I want to thank you so much for the insight that you bring to the Legends of Inside Sports, and I'm looking forward to meeting you next time, man. Same place and the same time.
Yes, sir. Always glad to be able to talk to the legendary Harold Bell.
And look, you guys can catch up with Mike on blackmeninamerica.com, read his blog, and with me on the original Inside Sports. And you can catch us here again the same time next week. And just remember that every black face you see is not your brother, and every white face is not your enemy. Until next time, I'm Harold Bell, and you can color me gone.